Hi, Anne-Marie.
Oh, hello.
Nice to have you here. And
Thank you.
Thank you for taking our survey and agreeing to be interviewed today.
My pleasure.
So, you've had experience in community. What drew you to religious community in particular?
Okay. Actually, what drew me was I think I was pretty spiritual, and the nuns that taught me in grammar school were really great women, and their community showed them as people who loved the Lord, but also loved us kids and spent a lot of time with us. So basically, my call to community initially was to the Sisters of St. Joseph in LaGrange, Illinois, and they are a really great group of women. I really feel much of my life I spent 20 years plus with them, and it definitely had a formative experience on me. But they also were great because of the freedom I experienced in them. I was then able in the mid-70s to leave and join another community called the Sisters for Christian Community. Now it's really kind of odd that we don't live in community, although we're called Sisters for Christian Community. And the reason for that is our sense of community is to build community wherever we are. In other words, as I get older now, I feel, for me, building community with the other seniors I live with in affordable housing down on Sheridan Road. Or basically doing the work I do, building community and justice with the Jane Addams work I do. So I think community sometimes gets mixed up in religious communities with the idea of the charism of the founder, and everybody is doing the works of the founder. Where in this new community, we go out and we recognize that everyone is called by being who they are. In other words, everyone has gifts and talents. When Jesus called the apostles, he didn't say, now, James, you have to follow like Peter, even though later we say Peter is the head of the church. Basically, he called everyone knowing they had gifts and flaws. Impetus, the idea of Peter jumping in to the water right away and then realizing he's drowning, or doubting, those are all human traits. And those are parts of what we bring to any community that we belong to. We bring the love of God, we bring the idea of Jesus to live in harmony, but also how to live with one another's imperfections. So I would say community for me today is the small communities I'm in. If we do exactly what the Lord has called us to do, love one another, then we will build the bigger community, not only of the church, but of the city, the county, the state, and the whole country.
So you mentioned a few communities that you're involved with today. Jane Addams and the community that you live with. Do you have a favorite memory or favorite story that draws you to those communities?
Oh, I'm going to go and talk to you about a community that I didn't mention, and that is back in the 60s, the late 60s, I taught in Mississippi, and I also was involved in civil rights work. And I guess the person I'm going to talk about is a bishop, Bishop Joseph Brunini. He knew we were doing civil rights work. He knew we were getting people to sign up to vote, and we were going to use the community room of the parish for our first integrated meeting. And he called up and asked if he could come to the meeting. And basically, I said, sure. I just never would have thought, coming from Chicago, to ask the cardinal to come to a local meeting. But here's the bishop coming asking me if he can come to our meeting. Wow. And so I said, of course. So he came, and he's a native Mississippian from Vicksburg. And he has his picture taken with the integrated board. And by doing that, that picture was on the Columbus Dispatch. And the person who took it lost her job. for actually having an integrated picture. But the bishop was there as the head of the community to support us because he believed that all are one. And he believed that what we were doing was the right thing and it was gospel work. And for me, to have that kind of affirmation from a church leader when you don't ordinarily get it was an outstanding understanding of community.
Wow, what an experience. Finally, what is your hope for community, our experience of community in the future?
I guess the thing is right now, politically, if I can speak about that, we're confusing communistic socialism with democratic socialism. Democratic socialism is very prevalent throughout Europe and in many other countries like in Africa and Thailand and some other. They have problems, don't get me wrong. They have the military and stuff like that. But like take the Norwegian, the Scandinavian peninsula. They spend much more taxes than we do, but the taxes really come back to the community. They come back with free education all the way up to college. They come back with long time off for maternity leave. They have a long time off for vacations. And it's not just because they have dark winters. This is true in other parts of Europe too. And I would like to see our country work towards an area where we don't divide people either because of race, religion, gender orientation, ethnic origin, and just all the different ways. And it seems today we're almost at the point where it's the worst I've ever seen in my life for division, but I have the hope that this is like the darkness before the light, that we will learn how to live in community. Because an earlier experience of community for me was growing up in the projects here in Chicago. I mean, my whole life was lived in the Julia Lathrop Home projects, and people there, when I grew up, their parents came from every place in the whole world, really. We had people from Greece, we had people from Ireland, from Poland, from Germany, we had Jewish people who came from a number of different places. We had French Canadian. My parents came from Ireland. And it was a community. Every parent looked out for all the kids. Many times your parents knew what you were up to before you ever hit the front door. And we had rules like everybody came in when the lights went on the street lights, that is. And there was a sharing. People helped one another. That sense of community formed me. And that's the kind of community I want to see for the future.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. What a vision. I hope and pray that that will someday be our experience.
Okay.